Hello friends and welcome back to Haas of Props. Today I'm going to show you how I made this fully wearable Darth Vader helmet from Star Wars A New Hope completely out of EVA foam. Let's get started. I started with the helmet's dome. First I took parts A and closed the darts with contact cement. I tried to make sure that I kept the surface of the pieces aligned as smoothly as possible in order to avoid a lot of cleanup later on. Then the two A pieces can be attached to each other along the indicated edge. Again, I took my time aligning the edges and registration lines to keep the surface as smooth as could be. While I do that, I would really appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you can be notified when a new project drops. Thank you. And then the entire process can be repeated with parts B. Start by closing up the darts, and then attach both B pieces together. Next, I attach the A unit to the B unit. I always use contact cement when working with foam unless I tell you otherwise. Next, I attached the parts C to each other along the indicated line, and then took the C unit and aligned it with the center seam and attached it the whole way around the base of the AB unit. Then the short ends can be attached to each other. I wanted to give part C a slight curve to it, so I heated it with my heat gun and bent the foam to the shape I wanted and held it while it cooled back down. Next, I took part D and rounded off the top edge slightly before attaching it along the center seam. And with that, the dome build is finished. Pretty easy, right? Now to start work on the mask part of the helmet. I started with parts E by closing the seams and then attaching the two pieces together. And the same process can be repeated with parts F. Then these two units can be attached to each other. I started my part G slightly off center because I cut the template a little wrong, but the template is correct now and you want to align the edge of the G's with the center seam of the EF unit. On the back of part H, I cut a groove out of the foam, closed the groove onto itself with contact cement, and it will give a nice edge on the facing surface. This beveled edge of part H can be attached like this to part G. You want this edge to be nice and sharp, that is why it gets beveled on the back. The same can be done on the other side with the other part H. Then part I is attached to this edge of part H. And then this edge attaches to part G, and repeat the same process for the left side. Next, part J attaches in here like this to both sides. The beveled edge of part K attaches here on part G. I cut a groove where the piece lines up with the edge so that the piece can then wrap and attach to the front edge of part H. Part L sits like this and then can wrap up the area between the eyes and onto the forehead. Then I attached the pieces of part M with CA glue. I started with the smaller at the bottom and then worked my way up in size and spaced them about 1/4 of an inch apart. Next, I attached part N with contact cement. I started with the registration marks and attached the lower corner and then worked my way up to the middle. Then, the small bottom edges can be glued to each other. I wasn't happy with this curve that was happening right here along the bottom edge. So I took a piece of a bamboo skewer and glued this along the bottom edge on the inside for support. Then I aligned part O on this inside edge. Once the other part O was in place, the triangular part P piece can be glued onto the back edges like so, and the bottom edge of part P should attach to the back of part N. Once in place, the other part P pieces can be glued onto the sloped plane with CA glue. I attach part Q on the long side first. Then this side should align with the bottom edge of part N and the center seam. If the piece is slightly too large here, trim it so it is in line with the seam. Then the second can be attached the same way. Each part R has the top edges rounded over, and the bottom shorter piece lines up along this seam. And the top should be about 1.25 inches from the eye socket. Next, the larger 4mm foam circle of part S can be glued onto this point with CA glue. And then the 6mm foam circle can be centered on top of that. Then I took my Dremel and round off the 6mm foam circle slightly. Part T can be attached to the bottom of part Q. After the second part Q, attach part U to the bottom edge. There is a little extra on part G. This can be cut off. With the face constructed, I then began to close up the back with part V. Leave the center seam unattached, that way we can make this wearable, but we'll deal with that a little later on. Then I use my Dremel to even out the mask's bottom edge. Next, I cut out a triangular shape on the seam of parts Q with a hobby knife. Next, I assemble part W with a triangle of 6mm foam and some 2mm foam strips crisscrossed on top. This can then be inserted from the inside of the helmet into this triangular hole and glued into place. Then I put a smoothing stone on my Dremel and begin to clean up the seams. This tip will remove the foam slowly so you can remove just a little at a time, unlike with the sanding tips that remove a lot. This way you can get really smooth seams. Next, I take some Quick Seal Plus and using a palette knife I apply a little to the seam areas. Then I dip my finger in water and smooth off the quick seal like so. This will just help fill in any uneven spots that the Dremel left behind. After the quick seal has dried, I take some 400 grit sandpaper and sand over the spots. This will remove any unevenness in the surface or any finger marks that still remain. After sanding, I heat seal the entire helmet with my heat gun. This causes the foam to shrink ever so slightly, which allows the foam to receive primer and paint easier. Next, the entire helmet can be coated with Plasti-Dip. On a project like this, I will apply 2 coats and see if a third is necessary, but usually 2 will be sufficient. So I was right, it only needed 2 coats of the Plasti-Dip, and after the last coat dried, I paint the entire helmet with a glossy black acrylic. You can use a fine bristle brush to apply the paint. By using a fine bristle, it reduces the amount of paint marks that will be visible when the paint settles and dries. You could also use an airbrush if you have one. You can see here how when the paint dries, we are left with a super shiny black surface. But for the screw details, I'm going to use this mirror chrome from Spastic. I just brush some of this onto the small details and wait for it to dry. And now the outside paint job is finished. You can paint the inside if you wish, but I always do that after the build is complete. To make the piece wearable, I'm going to add Velcro down the back, and a plus is this seam is hidden by the cap piece of the helmet. First, I'm going to take a piece and glue it where half is protruding past the edge like this. To glue this, I'm just using hot glue. Just be careful you don't burn yourself like I just did. The other piece can be glued so the entire piece is hidden on the inside like so. And when it goes together, it will look something like this. And again, the dome cap will cover this. It's just so the helmet can actually be worn. To make the lenses for the helmet, I'm using some of this dark green medical face shield that I use for both my Stormtrooper and Mandalorian helmets as well. I cut the pieces slightly larger than the hole and peel the protective coating off. Then on a scrap piece of wood, I heat the plastic with my heat gun. Once the piece is pliable, I warp the piece using a curved object and let it cool. Be careful because it is super hot. When it is cool and has a warp to it, I then hot glue it to the inside of the helmet. And hold the lens in place until the glue cools. And when the other lens is installed, the cap can be put in place, and the cap will remain detached so that the helmet can be worn. And there you have it, a fully functional and wearable Darth Vader helmet from Star Wars: A New Hope. I was worried about taking on a project like this just because of all the angles that are in the facial features. But what I found was cutting the template up into small shapes allowed me to get those really crisp angles by beveling, as you saw in the video. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, subscribe to Haas of Props, and I'll catch you on the next one. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at Haas of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.